Yukta Ramanan is the president and founder of Youth for Ethical Sourcing, an international non-profit organisation. She's working to address sourcing from an economic supply chain, environmental and humanitarian lens, and helping people in need in over 30 different developing countries, in alignment with over 8 UN Sustainable Development Goals. In addition to this, her passion for conscious consumerism has led to her becoming a published author, and she's joining me now. Hey, Yukta.
Hi, it's so nice to meet you for the second time, and thank you for this opportunity. Very grateful to be here.
Oh, it's really great to see you. Let's get straight into the questions, shall we? So yes. You're the president and founder of Youth for Ethical Sourcing, which brings awareness and helps refugees, orphans and other underserved demographics in developing countries gain access to quality education. Just tell me how it all started.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it all began with a childhood sort of obsession with makeup products. So I used to meddle with my mom's makeup kit like a lot of young people do. And then the more I grew, the more I realized that several of the products I was using had supply chains that were imbued with humanitarian violations and environmental damage. And I think what just didn't sit well with me. So I reached out to professors, I reached out to industry professionals, and Youth for Ethical Sourcing was born. So essentially I wanted to tackle, like you said in the introduction, the economic, environmental, and humanitarian aspects of sourcing and supply chain with a lot of the products that we use on a daily basis, but we might not know exactly what they come from and the human sacrifices that need to be made before they're sort of readily available to the vast majority. And so essentially what we're trying to do is punctuate global economic growth and business growth with sustainable governance and making sure that at the end of the day, the human and environmental perspectives are centered in whatever business process that might be. So through this, I've gotten the opportunity to present at a bunch of conferences, try to get more youth involved in this because it's something that I think we take for granted. And yeah, I'm having a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see where it goes. It's only been a couple of years, so.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And great that you mentioned that, because a lot of people use the projects
Absolutely.
and they don't have any idea about what happens in the background of where they come from.
Right.
So understanding that, is a massive thing for you to realize that, the importance of it and all of that.
Yeah.
In addition to that, you've raised thousands of dollars to help build infrastructure in these underserved communities.
Yeah.
How have you achieved this? And also, what really intrigues me is what drives you to do all of that.
What drove me, I can just rehash my introduction a little bit in that makeup sense. So specifically what I discovered in makeup is that there is a mineral called mica. Mica is a mineral phyllosilicate that's commonly found in pigments, shimmers. It gives it that fluorescent quality. A lot of mica is harvested from child labor in a lot of parts of India and Africa. And so these communities are marginalized consistently are blatantly taken advantage of and are given no fair wages, no fair working conditions, none of the sort. And children who otherwise should be in school are forced to work in these mines to give their families food on the table. So it's just this vicious cycle. And without proper infrastructure for healthcare and education, there's no way to break the cycle. So I think that's what I've been trying to raise money for. Obviously, some of the proceeds from my book, fundraisers, that sort of thing, trying my best to sort of give money to organizations that are doing grassroots work in these areas, because as a high school or a recent graduate of high school, there's not a lot of ways for me to get directly involved with those communities unless I work with organizations that already have programs there. So that's what I've been doing, just trying to get connected to those organizations and helping them build empowering systems of education and healthcare and alternative economic opportunity for those underserved community.
Beautiful. That's really beautiful. And, raising the awareness and helping people to understand exactly where the products are coming from and all of that stuff is really, really important. However, not all of the programs that you're running are actually about raising awareness or academic programs in terms of STEM. So tell me about the other programs that you're running and why they're so important to you.
Absolutely. So, I'm going to divert a little bit from Youth for Ethical Sourcing at this point, and just sort of talk about how academics are compounded by opportunities beyond STEM, obviously, like you said, but also by empowering a person's journey growth in general. And I think a lot of the work that I've done in this is policy work, sort of empowering other communities through that. And also a lot of work in mental health and equity and diversity and inclusion. Because I think a person needs to feel welcomed in order to grow and in order to learn at all. So it's important that we sort of help them on their journey to that, if that makes any sense. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of the work is focused on youth, because youth need to realize that we aren't the leaders of tomorrow, we're the leaders of today. So we need to embolden ourselves, be able to make those changes in order to set ourselves up for a future that is only ours. And I think like adults are thrusting a lot of this responsibility on young people. And I think we need to indulge in this responsibility instead of throw it away, because we're at this point where action is completely and totally necessary beyond just learning,
Yeah. And that makes total sense. When you say, I don't know if it makes sense, it does indeed. And, it's part of understanding humanity is understanding what it is that we need to make those changes happen. And it's so wonderful to see young people actually stepping up and going, actually, this is change that I want to see in the world. And
absolutely. So yeah, I used to work with this organization called the Greater Good Initiative. I was a director there, and it was a youth policy think tank, and that's where I really got this idea of youth are the leaders, aren't the leaders of tomorrow, we're the leaders of today. By instantiating tangible policy work, we can change our current stratifications and institutions that we think are flawed and are flawed. We can't just complain about them. We've got to work to change them. And even if people don't necessarily take youth seriously, we need to take ourselves seriously and continue pushing for that change.
That's so beautiful, really, really beautiful. And as a result of that, I mentioned in your intro that your passion for conscious consumerism has led to you becoming a published author.
Yes.
Tell us about Choco Tales. I'm really interested.
Of course. Thank you so much for asking. So Choco Tales was something I worked on my third year of high school, my junior year, and sort of the summer after that. And it's basically a children's book about the chocolate supply chain. So the chocolate supply chain, like the mineral mica one that I mentioned earlier, is very heavily intertwined with child labor in socioeconomically disadvantaged communities across Africa primarily. And essentially what I hope to do with my children's book was to introduce children to this idea of conscious consumerism and unethical supply chains without bombarding it in their faces with a slew of facts and statistics. So I thought it would be easier. These young consumers are going to enter the marketplace eventually. They're going to have to make decisions about the things they purchase. And so being introduced to these ideas of sustainability and ethical governance early on, without necessarily being scared by them, is really important for their growth as an ethical consumer. So essentially what Choco Tales does is sort of weave in ideas about ethical sourcing and sustainability and child labor into the otherwise playful framework of a children's book. So it tracks the story of a choco bar as he makes his way from a seed to a full-grown choco bar in San Francisco. I don't know why I chose San Francisco, but that's where he chose to live. And as the choco bar grows up, he sort of notices the inequities in the system of how he was harvested by a young girl, and how she couldn't go to school because she was harvesting him and spending time with him. And then he grows up and he's given into the possession of a young boy who takes him to school. And so it's just sort of noticing the inequities in the system across different countries and just supply chain in general. And it was a really fun project to work.
Yeah, what a beautiful way of introducing it to younger minds, because
thank you.
It really starts with awareness, doesn't it? It's about doing it in a way that's not really confrontational as such, but actually is just about planting the seed, which is
Right.
interesting.
And I think another part of that, sorry to interrupt, I think another part of that is just, I think we put too much of the blame on consumers in this process, right? We say, you need to make sure you're making all the ethical decisions in the world. You need to make sure that you're doing X, Y, Z. When really the main thing that we need to be doing is holding corporations accountable, which is all the more reason why, like, although conscious consumerism is really, really important, large scale advocacy is arguably more important, which is why we need to introduce these ideas more gently instead of just, I don't know, villainizing people for not purchasing ethically. That's not what it's about. It's a learning process for everyone. And I'd be lying if I said I purchase ethically every moment of my life, right? Sometimes it's difficult, but we just need to try as much as we can.
Yeah, it's about looking into the story of the products and understanding more about them. Yeah, definitely, and making change. So I hear that you're currently brainstorming for your second book, continuation. What can you tell us about the new book, if anything? And also, when are we likely to be able to see it or purchase it?
Okay, yeah, I think it took me a while with the first one, so maybe the second one will be a little bit faster, I'm hoping. I have this summer to myself before I go off to college, so I'm going to be cracking away at it. I don't want to say too much, but I will say that it will probably fall in the realm of another children's book, just because I enjoy illustrating and sort of working with those kind of childish characters. But I think at the end of this one, I'll have more of like a guidebook. At the end of the last one, I had a few tools for advocacy and how young kids can get involved. And I think I'll do something similar, having some sort of a fact sheet at the end of the book for parents to sort of explain or read over with their kids. It'll follow the same sort of line in that it's a children's book about something ethical sourcing related, but I think I'll focus on a new aspect of it this time, maybe environmental.
Brilliant. And I love the idea of having the resources at the end of it, so
absolutely,
can explain it in greater detail.
What is someone going to do with just a book, right? We need to, what goes beyond the book.
Yeah, and also the fact that it's not only educating the children in that respect, it's educating the parents at the same time. It's got to be a win-win, right? So when you're not busy creating change in the world, which obviously you're doing a lot of, what do you like to do with your time outside of all of that stuff?
Right. So I have had a lot more free time than I normally have. I just graduated high school a few days ago, so I've had way more time on my plate than I normally would have when I was sort of like obsessed with school or had a lot of school work to do. I mean, we're going to get back into that process, but I've been dancing a lot more lately, singing. I love singing and creating my own music. I had not so successful YouTube channel for a while there, but I'm glad that worked out a little bit in my favor. And I'm just a normal teenager. I like driving around with my friends. I work with a lot of organizations, like I said, youth policy think tanks, equity organizations. I helped run a podcast last year. But now that the summer's off, I think I'm just going to focus on sort of improving myself. And I think a lot of people like me who want to get involved in advocacy get burdened by it in a little bit, in a sense that they forget that they're just a normal teenager and that there's a whole world out there that they need to experience and enjoy. And they get sort of trampled by all the work and pressure on them, which I'd be lying if I said that didn't happen to me. So, I'm just trying to take it easy, just be a normal teenager, have fun with my friends, cook.
I love that, because it is about creating balance. I love that you want to do so much good in the world, but there is definitely, there's a time for doing that, and there's a time for hanging out with your friends and just doing things that make you feel that you're passionate about, like the dancing and the singing and all of that. So that's brilliant.
all these beautiful things that I completely took for granted, but I'm determined to not let that dampen me this summer.
That's beautiful. And so, I mean, you've got enough on your plate, obviously.
But
do you have any other projects in the pipeline? And also, thinking ahead in terms of what the future holds for you, what's your big dream for what you want to do for you in the future?
Oh my, that's the big dream is law school. eventually become a lawyer. And I'd love to, I don't know if this is a sector because I don't know too much about like the different aspects of law, but I think working in some sort of ethical sourcing law position, and helping companies on their way to becoming more sustainable and helping corporations balance business and balance profit with more sustainable supply chains, and helping them do that through a law standpoint, and maybe creating legal framework for the empowerment of socioeconomically disadvantaged communities, and helping them become more empowered, and helping more children go to school, and helping build better healthcare. It's all the dream, just a continuation of what I'm doing now, but hopefully something in that line eventually. And as for projects I have coming up, you know, other than just the normal youth for ethical sourcing stuff, I think I'm just going to continue working. We became a member of the UN Major Group for Children and Youth. So they do a lot of advocacy initiatives, and it's been really great just tagging along and learning more about the work that other youth organizations are doing in sustainability and humanitarian work, and just learning from them and just bouncing off each other. And I'm also working as an intern at the Sourcing Industry Group, which is a company that works in a lot of the stuff that I'm interested in. And so I became their youngest ever certified sourcing professional there. So I've been learning a lot more about ESG and more of this ethical sourcing stuff from a business standpoint, so I can just broaden my knowledge even more. So it's all been really fruitful and really fulfilling. And I just hope, you know, whatever path my life takes in the future, I just want it to have some of this, because I don't want to completely abandon what has defined the last 4 years of my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you know, I'm sure there are careers are popping up all over the place.
Absolutely.
It's come to the forefront now. It's really important for everybody.
Yes.
But also to know that your future holds doing something that you're so passionate about, and that passion really shines through, is really wonderful. So Yukta, I hope you'll share all of the links with us that we can share in this article, so that people can click through and they can see the work that you're doing and support you in any way. But it sounds to me like you've got a future as a massive change maker, even though you're already a change maker at the moment. So
thank you very much. And thank you to you for taking a chance on me, because you know, my work wouldn't be complete without people shining a light and helping me get my message out. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Oh, thanks for joining us, Yukta, and wherever we can help, we will, of course.
Thank you.